walked in on my pampered sister kissing my boyfriend a week before her wedding, told her fiance thought he brushed it off, but he shocked everyone at the wedding. The world stopped spinning the moment I saw her legs wrapped around him, his hand beneath her top, their lips locked in a kiss that stole the air from my lungs. The scream that tore from my throat was primal, raw, and tasted of dust and betrayed during the quiet afternoon into a million jagged pieces. For a 28-year-old woman, I thought I had a handle on life, on love, on family, but in that single, gut-wrenching instant, every assumption I held crumbled to ash. It had started so subtly, like a whisper in a silent room. My younger sister, Sarah, who was 26 and brimming with wedding excitement, began acting differently around my boyfriend, Tom, who was 29. It wasn't anything you could point to at first. Just an off-kilter energy, a shift in the air when they were together. She'd laugh a little too long at his jokes, even the ones that barely warranted a chuckle, then lean into his space, her eyes sparkling with an intensity I couldn't quite place. I tried to push it away, convincing myself it was just the pre-wedding jitters making her overly friendly. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But here's the thing about paranoia: sometimes it's just your intuition screaming to be heard. The casual touches started next, a hand lingering on his arm, a seemingly accidental brush against his back as she walked past, always in a way that felt just a fraction too intimate for a sister-in-law to be. Then there were the glances, those fleeting, loaded looks she'd shoot his way when she thought no one was watching, especially when he was engaged in conversation with someone else. Each one felt like a small, sharp pebble dropped into my stomach, churning an uneasy knot. What I found next changed everything. One evening after a family dinner where Sarah had been particularly animated around Tom, I finally couldn't hold it in. Back in the quiet sanctuary of our apartment, I turned to Tom, my voice barely a whisper. "Did you notice Sarah tonight?" He looked at me, genuinely confused. "What do you mean?" I laid it all out: the excessive laughter, the unnecessary touching, the way her eyes seemed glued to him. He listened, then shrugged, a dismissive gesture that cut deeper than he knew. "I think you're overthinking it," he said, his tone laced with exasperation. "She's probably just excited about the wedding. It's harmless." The word harmless echoed in my mind, a hollow, mocking sound. It didn't feel harmless at all. This kind of dismissal, where one partner's valid concerns are minimized and attributed to their emotional state, is a common tactic known as gaslighting. It's designed to make you question your own perceptions and sanity, subtly shifting the blame onto you for imagining things, rather than addressing the actual behavior. Despite his reassurances, the gut feeling persisted, a cold, persistent dread. So I started watching meticulously. Every time we were near Sarah, my gaze would involuntarily track her, noting every subtle maneuver. She always found a way to gravitate towards him, to position herself in his orbit. She'd plop down next to him on the sofa, seemingly by chance, or invent a never-ending list of wedding tasks that only Tom could help her with, even when I was standing right there, perfectly capable. The tension was building, a slow, suffocating pressure. Then came the barbecue at my parents' house. I ducked inside for a moment, and when I returned, the world tilted on its axis. There they were, Sarah and Tom, tucked away in a corner of the yard, partially obscured by a blooming hydrangea bush. They were standing impossibly close, talking in hushed tones, her giggles carrying on the breeze, a sound that now grated on my nerves. The moment their eyes met mine, they sprang apart like guilty schoolchildren caught stealing cookies. Sarah scurried off, pretending nothing had happened. My blood ran cold, a wave of nausea washing over me, followed by a burning anger. But I couldn't make a scene, not there, not surrounded by family. I waited, the anger simmering beneath the surface, until we were home, the quiet apartment amplifying my fury. "What were you and Sarah talking about?" I asked Tom, trying to keep my voice even, a monumental effort. He seemed genuinely surprised by the question, explaining it was just wedding details, like music choices. His casualness inflamed me. "Why did that conversation require you two to be practically glued together?" I shot back, my control slipping. He sighed, annoyed, and doubled down on his dismissals. "She's just being friendly," he insisted, again. "There's nothing going on." That was it. "She's practically throwing herself at you, and you're just letting it happen." My voice cracked with frustration. He looked genuinely pained, asking what he was supposed to do, reminding me she was my sister, and he was just trying to be polite. Politeness. This was a textbook case of someone failing to set appropriate boundaries. When someone is persistently overstepping social or emotional lines, particularly in a romantic context, the onus is on the person being targeted to establish clear boundaries. His refusal to do so, claiming it would be impolite, actually enabled Sarah's behavior and perpetuated the uncomfortable situation, leaving me feeling invalidated. I told him he needed to make it clear, in no uncertain terms, that he wasn't interested in anything beyond friendship. He refused, claiming I was seeing problems that didn't exist. Our conversation spiraled, a dizzying dance of accusations and denials, leaving us both frustrated and utterly unresolved. We went to bed that night in a silent, seething stalemate. The next day I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let this fester. I called Sarah, my hands trembling as I arranged a coffee date. She agreed, her voice bright and oblivious, only deepening my unease. At the cafe, I was a bundle of nerves, stirring my coffee until the spoon clinked against the ceramic like a frantic heartbeat. Sarah, oblivious, chatted away about wedding plans, her excitement a stark contrast to my internal turmoil. I was about to detonate a bomb in her perfect little world. I cut her off mid-sentence, the gravity of my tone instantly silencing her. "We need to talk," I said, my voice thin. Her face shifted from surprise to confusion, then hardened into a defensive mask. I laid it all out, the flirting, the touches, the lingering looks. I told her it needed to stop. Her reaction was swift and furious. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, vehemently denying everything. When I stood my ground, explaining her actions were inappropriate and causing me distress, she let out a short, dismissive laugh. "You're being ridiculous," she scoffed. "Tom's practically family. I'm just being friendly." This dismissal, coupled with her immediate attack on my perceptions, is a classic example of deflection and projection. Instead of acknowledging her own behavior, she questioned my mental state, shifting the focus onto my own security to avoid accountability. It was a brutal form of emotional manipulation, but her words did nothing to ease the tension. I pushed back, explaining it was more than just friendliness, it was a deliberate, continuous pattern. Her face flushed crimson, a furious disbelief contorting her features. "You're accusing me of this, right before my wedding?" She spat, her voice laced with venom. "You must be incredibly insecure." Her words stung, but I stood firm. "This isn't about insecurity, Sarah," I countered, my voice shaking with conviction. "This is about respect. You are crossing a line, and it needs to stop." With a screech of chair against tile, she shot to her feet. "I am not going to sit here and listen to your paranoid accusations," she declared, her eyes blazing. "If you can't trust your own sister, that's your problem, not mine." And with that, she stormed out, leaving me alone in the cafe, the clatter of her departure echoing in the sudden silence. A dizzying swirl of emotions consumed me. Had I gone too far? Was I really just paranoid? Back home, Tom instantly saw my shattered demeanor. As I recounted the conversation, his face clouded with concern. "You made a big mistake," he said, his voice heavy. He worried about Sarah, about her wedding. "Are you taking her side?" I challenged, my voice edged with pain. He insisted he wasn't, but doubled down on his doubts about Sarah's flirting, suggesting I'd handled it wrong. Tears welled in my eyes. "So what was I supposed to do, Tom?" I choked out, the frustration a burning knot in my throat. "Just ignore it." He wrapped his arms around me, suggesting I could have talked to him more, or approached Sarah less confrontationally. He expressed concern that this would now cast a shadow over her wedding, making things incredibly awkward. I pulled away, staring at him. "So, this is all my fault." I needed to know if he truly believed I was to blame. He sighed, clearly struggling, saying he didn't mean to blame me solely, but that I might have overreacted. We argued again, a chasm opening between our perspectives, neither willing to truly see the other's. He went to bed, leaving me alone with my swirling doubts and a crushing sense of isolation. The days that followed were a cold, silent war. Sarah stopped speaking to me entirely. My parents, witnessing Sarah's distress, called, their voices laced with disappointment. I tried to explain, but their responses made it clear they believed I had overreacted too. The weight of their disapproval was immense, a heavy cloak of guilt. The wedding day loomed, a dark cloud on the horizon. I was supposed to be a bridesmaid, a role that now felt like a cruel joke. Tom, still invited, urged me to attend, to show no hard feelings. But the thought of standing there, watching Sarah, knowing what I knew, made me physically ill. This was only the beginning of the nightmare. I tried calling Sarah repeatedly, leaving apologies on her voicemail, pleading for us to talk. She never answered. I even went to her apartment, only for the door to be slammed in my face. My anxiety reached a fever pitch. Tom kept telling me to let it go, that it would blow over, but his words felt hollow, like empty promises. I had nightmares of the wedding, of everyone staring, pointing, murmuring. I'd wake up shaking, covered in a cold sweat. Then, a week before the wedding, I found myself at my parents' house, desperate to fix things. As I approached the front door, hushed voices drifted from the side of the house. Intrigued, a terrible premonition coiling in my gut, I walked towards the garden, and there they were. Sarah and Tom, partly hidden behind a towering plant, their bodies entwined in a passionate embrace. Her legs were wrapped around his waist, his hand beneath her top, their lips locked in a kiss that erased everything else. They were so consumed by each other, they didn't even see me. A physical blow, a punch to the stomach, knocked the air from my lungs. For a solid minute, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't even form a coherent thought as the sickening reality seeped in. Then, a tidal wave of anger and betrayal surged, consuming me. Ties. The words tore from me, a raw, trembling scream. They sprang apart, guilt etched on their faces. Sarah's face drained of color, turning an ashen white, while Tom fumbled for words, stammering, "It's not what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. Every fear, every suspicion, every unsettling flicker of intuition had been sickeningly confirmed. Tears streamed down my face, hot and furious. "How could you?" I choked out, my voice thick with a pain I didn't know I could endure. "My own sister, and my boyfriend." Sarah started to cry too, her voice quivering with a desperate, belated apology. "I'm so sorry, we didn't mean for this to happen." But I couldn't hear their excuses, couldn't bear to look at them. The betrayal was too deep, too raw. Without another word, I turned and fled, their frantic calls fading behind me as I ran to my car. I sped away, my phone buzzing incessantly. Tom, then Sarah, then my mom. I ignored them all. The pain was an overwhelming tide. I arrived home numb, packed a bag with essentials, and sent Tom a final text. "We're done. Don't try to contact me again." Then, I turned off my phone, severing all ties. I ended up in a hotel room in a nearby city, the silence deafening, my future a blank, terrifying canvas. The wedding was days away, a grotesque mockery of happiness. My relationship was shattered, and the bond with my sister, once a cornerstone of my life, was irrevocably broken. My entire world had been overturned. Everyone had made me feel crazy, paranoid, insecure, but in the end, I was right. The agony of that realization was almost unbearable. How would I ever trust anyone again? My phone continued to buzz with messages and calls, a relentless reminder of the wreckage. Days passed in a fog of hurt and confusion, but through the haze, one thought became painfully clear. Mark, Sarah's fiance, deserved to know. With a heavy heart, I made the call. His voice was laced with confusion, asking about Sarah, how I'd disappeared. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, I recounted everything, my initial suspicions, their dismissals, and finally, the horrific scene in the garden. He listened, silent, absorbing every gut-wrenching detail. When I finished, a long, heavy silence stretched between us. Then, in a controlled, measured voice, he simply thanked me, saying he needed time to process. He hung up. I stared at my phone, wondering what he would do. The unraveling was just beginning. The wedding day approached, and I heard nothing. The silence was deafening. I started to fear Sarah had somehow convinced him to forgive her, that she'd get her fairy tale wedding while my life lay in ruins. The thought made me physically ill. I couldn't go. Instead, I spent that day alone, trying to piece together the fragments of my shattered self. That evening, a call from my cousin Emma shattered the quiet. Her voice, hushed and urgent, vibrated with barely contained excitement. "Oh my God, you won't believe what just happened!" Confused, my heart pounding with a strange mix of dread and anticipation, I urged her to tell me. She dove into the story, every word painting a vivid, cinematic scene. Everything had been normal, she said. Sarah had looked stunning, Mark waiting at the altar. But when it came time for the vows, Mark had stepped forward. He couldn't go through with it. Emma recounted, her voice rising with disbelief. He told everyone there that he couldn't marry someone who had betrayed her own sister and devastated her life by getting involved with her boyfriend. Sarah's face had drained of color, turning ghostly pale. Then, to everyone's shock, Mark turned to my parents, apologizing, telling them they needed to know the real reason I had distanced myself. Sarah broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. My parents were stunned, the guests whispering frantically. Mark had then simply walked out of the church, leaving Sarah, alone and weeping, at the altar. It was like something out of a movie, Emma gasped. Everyone's in shock. Your parents are trying to get the full story from Sarah, but she's an emotional wreck. As I absorbed Emma's words, a maelstrom of emotions roared within me. Vindication, yes, a powerful, almost dizzying sense of justice. The truth was out. But underneath it, a profound sadness for the collateral damage, the pain inflicted on my family. Emma, sensing my silence, asked gently, "Are you okay?" "I'm not sure," I admitted, truthfully. I never wanted it to end like this. After a little more conversation, I hung up, sinking back into the silence, trying to sort through the chaos. The truth had finally emerged, but at what cost? My friendship with Sarah was obliterated, my relationship with Tom, a painful memory, and my entire family was in crisis. I began to understand that the truth, while liberating, doesn't instantly heal. The road to rebuilding trust, to finding peace, was going to be long and arduous. But for the first time since this nightmare began, a tiny flicker of relief ignited within me. At least now I could begin to move forward, unshackled by the suffocating weight of hidden facts. I don't know what comes next, though I know I will eventually have to face my family. Right now, I'm just living one day at a time, trying to find my footing in this new reality. This experience has taught me the invaluable lesson of trusting my gut feelings, of defending my truth, even when everyone else tries to convince me I'm crazy. For anyone out there facing similar situations, remember this: your intuition is a powerful compass. Don't let anyone gaslight you into disbelieving your own perceptions. Defend your boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable, because your peace of mind is worth fighting for. What would you have done in my situation when faced with such profound betrayal and denial from those closest to you? How do you navigate family relationships when trust is shattered beyond repair? Share your thoughts below. Educational call to action. This story isn't just about personal drama. It's a profound look into complex psychological and social dynamics. We explored gaslighting, where one's perceptions are subtly undermined, making them question their own reality. This insidious form of emotional manipulation often leaves victims feeling confused, anxious, and isolated. We also witnessed deflection and projection, common defense mechanisms where individuals avoid accountability by shifting blame or accusing others of their own insecurities. Finally, the narrative touches upon the societal pressure for family cohesion at all costs, a dynamic that can often enable unhealthy behaviors and prevent individuals from setting necessary boundaries. Understanding these psychological concepts can empower you to recognize manipulative patterns, validate your own experiences, and advocate for your emotional well-being. If you or someone you know is experiencing similar dynamics, seeking professional guidance can provide invaluable support and strategies for healthy communication and boundary setting. Recognizing these signs early can be crucial for protecting your mental and emotional health.